am Dominus Cinephile.
Welcome to my movie and TV series reviews, where I will provide honest opinions of the latest releases. If the movie or TV series is a hit or a miss, be sure to know I will inform you. But if the movie or series is trash, be also sure to know that I will trash the hell out of the movie. I am Dominus Cinephile.
And the movie on the review table today is the Nollywood film Miss Kanyin. Miss Kanyin is a 2025 horror thriller directed by Ikechukwu Jerry Ossai. Attempts to bring to life the infamous Nigerian boarding school urban legend of Miss Koikoi, a vengeful spirit said to haunt dormitories. With a promising premise, the cast includes Temi Otedola, Michelle Dede, Kanaga Jr., Natse Jemide, Toluwani George, Queen Damilola, Kalu Ikeagwu, and Keppy Ekpenyong. Miss Kanyin, 2025, is a supernatural horror thriller that reimagines the terrifying Nigerian boarding school legend of madamkoikoi, a vengeful spirit said to haunt dormitories and classrooms in search of retribution. The story follows Amara, a brilliant but desperate final year student who will stop at nothing to ace her French exams and secure a place at an Ivy League university in America. Under immense academic pressure, Amara makes a reckless decision with the help of her friends, a decision that spirals out of control and leads to the accidental death of their French teacher, Miss Kanyin. But death isn't the end. Their actions awaken the wrath of madamkoikoi, a bloodthirsty spirit bound to vengeance and pain. As Amara's friends begin dying one by one in gruesome and unexplainable ways, she must team up with the enigmatic Mr. Mustafa in a desperate race against time to uncover the truth, break the curse, and stop the killing spree before she becomes the next victim. Dark secrets, cursed hallways, and a ghost that walks in red heels, Miss Kanyin is a chilling descent into guilt, horror, and the price of ambition. Miss Kanyin made its premiere on Amazon Prime on June 27th, 2025. And like many others, I was eager and cautiously hopeful to see if this latest take on the infamous Nigerian urban legend would finally deliver the horror and storytelling that the 2023 Netflix version failed so miserably to capture. The Netflix adaptation was, frankly, a mess. Poorly written, lazily acted, and lacking any real fear factor. So when Amazon announced their version, Miss Kanyin, directed by Ikechukwu Jerry Ossai, I was curious to see if Nollywood could redeem this chilling legend with a fresh, terrifying spin and a better grasp of what makes horror work. Does this version rise above the mediocrity of its predecessor, or does it fall into the same pit of wasted potential? You can watch my review of The Origin, madamkoikoi, available to watch here. Now let's dive into this review, where I break down yet another frustratingly disappointing horror attempt from Nollywood. A film that proves once again that stunning visuals can't save lazy storytelling and poor execution. From the very first scene, you're drawn in by the film's striking visuals and rich, atmospheric cinematography. The aesthetic choices initially spark hope. Maybe, just maybe, this would be a fresh and worthy adaptation of the Miss Koikoi legend. But wait, scratch that. I think I skipped ahead, because what the movie actually throws at us first is an absolutely ridiculous flashback to the year 1853, if I'm even getting that right. We're suddenly in a forest where some African characters are carrying a Caucasian man through what the director clearly wants us to believe is an ancient, haunted terrain. That's where the madness begins. First, one of the African characters is inexplicably dressed in modern Ankara fabric. Yes, in a scene supposedly set in the mid-1800s. Then, we get the painfully wooden performance from the Caucasian actor, who delivers his lines with all the emotion of a bored mannequin. But the biggest insult, The fake-looking CGI, or possibly AI-generated tree, which is meant to be the film's central evil. Every time the camera cuts to this haunted tree, the color grading and lighting shift so drastically. It's like you're watching two completely different films stitched together. And to make things worse, there's a clearly visible road running right through the background, as if cars hadn't just passed by 5 minutes before shooting. That's how little attention was paid to continuity or immersion. And then, in a completely laughable attempt to create horror and suspense, we suddenly see the white man's head on the floor in a pool of blood, with no real build-up or tension. The entire scene felt so absurd. It was like watching a horror-themed episode of Teletubbies on a bad acid trip. By the end of that opening sequence, I already knew this was going to be a long, painful descent into chaos. So I buckled up for the madness, fully aware that I was in for a tedious ride through poor decisions, inconsistent direction, and sheer creative laziness. Just when the film begins to settle into its beautiful aesthetic, with rich colors, polished cinematography, and a promising atmosphere, we're thrown into yet another moment of pure confusion. Temi Otedola's character walks up to a locker, opens it, and pulls out what appears to be a diary or notebook with 2024 boldly printed on a page. Now stay with me here, because trying to make sense of the blatant stupidity behind this timeline inconsistency is like solving a puzzle that doesn't want to be solved. Throughout the film, everything from the costumes to the dialogue to the setting clearly signals a late 1980s or early 1990s time period. So why, in the middle of all this, are we shown a book dated 2024? Was this a flash forward, a framing device, a dream, an editing error, or just pure laziness? If the story is set in the 90s, then what exactly is Temi's character doing with the 2024 diary? And more importantly, why was she with the book only once and never again? There's no explanation, no follow-up, no connection to the plot. It's as if the director threw in a random scene from another film and hoped no one would notice. Was the entire movie supposed to be a flashback? If so, where's the structure, the setup, the narrative logic? Instead, what we get is a disjointed, half-baked moment that adds nothing to the story and only confuses the viewer further. It feels like the writer and director were either making it up as they went along or simply didn't care enough to fix glaring plot holes. Bottom line, if you're going to play with timelines, at least respect your audience enough to make it coherent. This wasn't clever storytelling. It was lazy, unearned, and completely unnecessary. As if the timeline confusion and lazy setup weren't bad enough, the most infuriating part of Miss Kanyin is how painfully long it takes for the actual plot to begin. I'm not exaggerating when I say the movie drags its feet for nearly 75 minutes before anything resembling a storyline even kicks in. That's over an hour of filler, meaningless scenes, awkward student chatter, underdeveloped characters, random flashbacks, and cheap jump scares that go nowhere. It's like the director thought stylish visuals and background music could mask the fact that absolutely nothing is happening. And by the time we do get to the supposed heart of the story, the haunting, the deaths, the cursed spirit of madamkoikoi, you're already exhausted, disconnected, and irritated beyond belief. The build-up was so sluggish, it felt less like suspense and more like punishment. It's almost insulting how long the film expects the audience to wait for anything remotely substantial to unfold. For a horror thriller based on one of Nigeria's most iconic urban legends, you'd think the filmmakers would waste no time diving into the tension and dread. But no, they treat pacing like an afterthought, squandering the eerie setup with bland school drama and long, pointless scenes that serve no narrative purpose. By the time the horror finally starts, you no longer care. The emotional investment is gone. The momentum is dead. And when things do pick up, it's rushed, sloppy, and driven by weak CGI, rather than actual suspense or story. As if the poor pacing, inconsistent timeline, and laughable CGI weren't enough, Miss Kanyin goes a step further by awkwardly forcing unnecessary information into the script. And I mean forcing in the most unnatural way possible. At one point, the movie randomly drops the word xenophobia, the term for the fear of dogs, and actually pauses to define it for the audience. Now, I have nothing against expanding vocabulary in films, but the way this was done felt like the writer was desperate to sound smart, like they Googled a big word and couldn't wait to show it off. It had zero relevance to the plot, added no real depth to the character, and came off as painfully forced. No one in a real conversation stops mid-sentence to define xenophobia unless they're giving a TED talk. And this definitely wasn't that. The delivery was so stiff and out of place that it completely broke the already weak immersion. It's these kinds of lazy, pretentious writing choices that make the film even more frustrating to watch. Instead of focusing on building real tension or developing characters we care about, the film wastes precious time on awkward exposition that serves no purpose other than to sound intelligent. But intelligence in film comes from storytelling, not Wikipedia-level insertions of psychological terms that go nowhere. Miss Kanyin tries to be everything: deep, scary, stylish, but ends up being none of it. Instead, what we get is a bloated mess of a script with characters that talk like they're reading off a word of the day calendar and a plot that takes forever to arrive, only to collapse under its own confusion. Now, let's talk about performances, starting with the lead, Temi Otedola, who plays Amara, the brilliant but desperate student at the center of this chaotic horror tale. To be blunt, more was needed from her, a lot more. For someone carrying the emotional weight of a film like this, her performance felt disappointingly flat, detached, and lacking in the intensity the role demanded. Amara is supposed to be a girl under immense pressure, torn between ambition, guilt, fear, and survival. But Temi's portrayal rarely scratches beyond the surface. There were moments that called for raw vulnerability, panic, or even mental breakdown, especially as her friends start dying one by one. But those scenes never land the way they should. Instead, we get a controlled, almost robotic delivery that makes it hard to emotionally connect with her or believe in the stakes of the story. It's not that she's a terrible actress. She clearly has screen presence. But this role demanded more depth, more emotional range, and a stronger command of tension. Unfortunately, her performance was simply not up to the task. And in a film already struggling with pacing, weak writing, and plot holes, a more gripping lead performance could have helped salvage something. But instead, what we get is another missed opportunity. In horror, especially psychological or supernatural horror, the lead needs to carry the audience through the fear, through the confusion, and through the descent into chaos. Temi didn't do that. Instead, she drifted through scenes with the same expression, whether she was discovering a dead body or reading a diary. The urgency just wasn't there. Dede, who plays one of the key adult figures in the film, brings a bit more weight to her role, but even that wasn't enough to lift this sinking ship. While she has the poise and screen maturity you'd expect, her character is woefully underwritten, and she's never really given the space to do anything meaningful. At best, her performance is decent but forgettable. Not because she lacks talent, but because the script gives her almost nothing to work with. She floats in and out of scenes like a placeholder, delivering dialogue that feels stiff and inconsequential. It's frustrating to watch a capable actress reduced to background noise in a story that clearly needed stronger adult anchors. In a film so badly in need of emotional grounding and believable authority figures, Michelle Dede could have been a solid presence. But instead, she's wasted in a role that barely scratches the surface. In summary, Miss Kanyin is yet another glaring reminder of how Nollywood continues to fumble even the richest of horror legends. What should have been a chilling, unforgettable reimagining of the madamkoikoi urban myth ends up as a painfully dragged-out, incoherent mess. Bloated with unnecessary scenes, weak character development, poor pacing, and directionless storytelling. The film takes over 75 minutes to find its plot, and by then, the audience has already checked out. Its reliance on flashy CGI, disjointed timelines, and forced intellectualism, like awkwardly dropping the word xenophobia just to sound smart, shows just how out of touch the writing is with the essence of horror, tension, dread, and emotional investment. Temi Otedola delivers a performance that falls short of the emotional complexity her lead role demands, while Michelle Dede is wasted in a hollow, forgettable role that does nothing to anchor the film. Even moments meant to be shocking or suspenseful end up laughable as the film trips over its own ambition and collapses under poor execution. From the ridiculous historical inaccuracies, like modern Ankara in 1853, to the laughably fake CGI tree and a diary dated 2024 in a 90s setting, Miss Kanyin is a masterclass in missed opportunities and lazy filmmaking. What we're left with is not horror, not suspense, not even campy fun, just frustration, confusion, and over 2 hours of wasted potential. At the end of the day, Miss Kanyin doesn't slowly burn. It drags, it stumbles, and it frustrates. And by the time the flame catches, there's nothing left to burn. Another failed entry in the growing pile of Nollywood horror disappointments. And now for my rating. Miss Kanyin scores a disappointing 1 out of 10. I'm definitely trashing this. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon for notifications. Also, be sure to follow me on TikTok, WhatsApp channel, and Instagram at Domino Cinephile for more movie and TV series reviews. Domino Cinephile, signing out.